Hi guys, another Tuesday evening, and we are your hosts from the 92 Diaries podcast. I am your host, Bahana, aka Fee,
I'm Juliet.
And it's Miss Chardz.
and today we're going to be touching on another topic that I think we can all relate to. It's quite a broad topic, but we're trying to basically talk about situations where we found ourselves quite vulnerable. And that could be in relationships, whether it be platonic or relationship wise, or just if you're trying to make a change in your life and you're finding it quite difficult, or when it comes to like your studies and you didn't get that grade you wanted, or you somehow failed in some aspect or another. So it's all about these vulnerabilities and like how we've overcome them and what we've realized about what it is to be vulnerable, and how it isn't actually anything to be ashamed about, contrary to popular belief. So to get the ball rolling, guys, you can pick any viewpoint that you want, but what situations have you found yourself vulnerable and how have you overcome them?
It's interesting because I
think.
Oh,
go on. For me,
imagine we're not being vulnerable anymore, and I just jump into it to start, with
I
my
know,
chest.
right?
Wow, okay.
Well, you got to. Do you know what I mean? We're here. We're doing the podcast. We're trying to, show people that this is life, and we want to get raw with our topics. So, guys, come on, get in there.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. I find it really hard to be vulnerable because I don't like people feeling like they have something over me or that they can use something against me.
Mhm.
And I generally I don't really like the response that comes from people. To be fair, when I'm vulnerable. And I really, that holding something over your head thing is a lot. And I've seen people like shove it back in my face a lot of times. So it does stop me from wanting to be vulnerable, especially in relationships. So I find it difficult to actually just kind of like break those walls down and be like, okay, this is the vulnerable part of me. But I must say that one thing my last partner was very good at was listening and accepting that vulnerability. Although times, stuff comes back up in the face, so there's still that part which makes me want to withdraw. But being able to accept that information, and it allows this like open and honest relationship, and you understand how I'm feeling. So if you understand it, you know how to respond a bit more and how to deal with me. So it is very beneficial to be vulnerable, but I personally struggle with being vulnerable.
Have you tried to do anything recently to try and overcome that, or are we just acknowledging?
I've acknowledged it. I think that's the first step. In terms of trying to overcome it, I do feel like finding someone who understands my process is one thing. So that will help my vulnerability and help me want to talk to you more. It's just about dealing with it, even if it's not the greatest news, but the way you handle that situation will help me. Ways to overcome it, I just kind of like, it's not like I don't care anymore, but I just kind of like let's put everything on the table kind of situation. I think I'm having that approach now more so. So it's like, you know what, I'll just lay it out there. However you receive it, that's your problem. But for me, and it's not like I'm hitting you, do you know what I mean, with in an unfair way. I'm trying to be vulnerable, I'm trying to be open and honest to you. So I'm just gonna lay it out there. Just however you deal with it is how you deal with it.
I think it's weird actually, because I think there's no way of being like, yeah, I'm over it, I'm coming through it, and I've overcome. That'll be a lie. I think because it's also difficult for me to allow myself to be vulnerable in many aspects of my life, to be honest. I do think I'm still working through it, or trying to work through it, and I'm glad that I finally come to a place now where I could admit I do have a problem with being vulnerable, and it does affect certain areas of my life more so than others. I think it's difficult, I guess, with relationships and stuff. I think you can't, one of the frustrating things there is that there's no way that you can control somebody's response to you trying to be vulnerable. It's something it's not possible to do. I could be like, oh, actually, I feel this way about this, and the person could be like, or they could be like, oh my gosh, I can relate, or they could, like, you can't control what the response is going to be. But I think the important thing for me, and how I may be trying to work through it, is to own my truth and to just state and to learn to speak in places where I feel I can be honest and the environment is safe to do so, and then just say it. Just be honest and be straightforward, because if I compromise that, then I'm not allowing myself to be truly vulnerable, and I'm not allowing that person to give me their honest response in return, and therefore not allowing them to be vulnerable with me. So it's a two-way street, really. In terms of other areas of my life, like seeking out opportunities and stuff, because I don't like putting myself out there. So this podcast has been difficult for me in many different ways. I hate putting myself out there because I feel like if it's not something that I know I'm gonna be like guaranteed to be good at, I'm like, yeah, it can wait. But I know this year I'm trying to kind of slowly come out of that and just go for things that I know that I don't know I'm not 100% in them, but I can always try and just see how it goes. So I'm trying in those kind of areas there.
Definitely agree. Mine has more so been relationship wise. I've realized I'm not as open as I seem to think that I am, and mine stems from the same reasoning as it does with Chardz. I'm just a bit worried that that's something you're going to try and use against me at some point, and I've come to realize that is a reality I fabricated in my mind. I cannot control how somebody will treat me. If they choose to use my own flaws against me, then sorry sir, you are a horrible person, and I'll keep it moving. But if you can't live life in fear, and I think sometimes you've got to do things that make you uncomfortable, because then how else will you grow? I became very comfortable with failing things in life at a very early age. I have always found it more so difficult to get like the best of the best in things, like when it comes to academics and when it comes to like how I perform and stuff like that. But that's just life. I'm not upset about it, and I will own up to it. I get a lot of people that say to me, oh, like, Fee, you know quite a bit about X, Y, and Z, and I'll be like, I don't really know anything, to be fair. Not that I don't know anything, I'm not putting myself down, but I'm just a normal person, and I'm trying to reiterate that to people, because I do find sometimes people kind of try and push you into this mindset where it's like you're so cool and you're so glossy and you have no problems, and it's like, no, B, I have problems. I'm just as vulnerable as you are out here. Like, don't be putting me on some sort of pedestal, because then it makes it harder for me to then come to you if I need help, because I've got in my mind that you're thinking about me a certain type of way, if that makes sense. So this year I've moved to Liverpool by myself. That was a big thing. My brother was very much my security blanket. Even though I say to everybody how he's always reliant on me, I was just as reliant on him, but just in a different way. My brother was my security, and my brother was like my go-to blanket kind of thing.
Safety
like
net.
Yeah. So everything else could go to shit, but I knew my brother was still there. Do you know what I mean? And that you get comfortable with that. And now that we're in different cities, I do find it a bit difficult that he's not just there. I can't just go and sit in his room or something and just listen to the nonsense that he chats sometimes, or just have a laugh with him, because sometimes he does make things better. And I also started going to the gym by myself. Again, my brother was my security blanket. He's the one that helped me build up my confidence to go to the gym by, like, on my ones and stuff. Since being here in Liverpool, I did fall off the bandwagon a little bit, and I kind of had to sit there and say to myself, because I'd been saying to Julie for time, I'm changing gyms, I've had enough of the gym I'm at, I'm changing gyms. Ask her how long I said that. Like a good 6 months.
Like 5-6 months?
A good 6 months I've been saying to her, I'm changing gym, I'm changing gym. And it's just because this new gym I really wanted to go to, I knew I would do excel really, really well there, but I was just afraid of this change. And I was afraid to be there by myself amongst people who were doing better than me. And I kind of had to put a break on it and be like, stop allowing yourself to compare yourself to others. You are different, you're doing your own thing, and if you fuck up, that's left to you. Pick yourself up and continue again. If you're vulnerable for it, then that's not a problem. It just makes you stronger in the long run. I think we're in a society now where people seem to think that it's bad to admit that you have a weakness. I don't think that's the case. I think you're a strong person for admitting if you've got a weakness, or if everything's not okay, or you're finding it difficult to open yourself up to people around you. And it takes a lot to do that. if someone came to me tomorrow and opened up to me, I would not turn them away. I'd say, like, I'd pat you on the back and be like, well done you, because that couldn't have been easy. And I think we all need to try and get to a headspace where we're around. I don't know if you guys listened to our podcast a couple episodes back about support networks. It's important that you have a good support network around you, because you need those people that you can go to when you have a problem. I can't tell you guys that are listening how often I have called up Chardz. I have called up Julie in times when I have been stuck. I didn't know how to get out of these situations. And if it weren't for me going to them about these problems, I wouldn't be here today. So again, I just want to stress that it's okay to be vulnerable. And if you are going to be vulnerable, have yourself a good support network. You might not want to talk to every Tom, Dick and Harry, but if you've got a good support network, you shouldn't feel worried to go and speak to them about your problems. They should be able to help you. That's what they're there for.
I totally agree. Like, so much with you, Fee. The vulnerability does extend to like activities as well, which I agree with Julie. I can never say I'm not vulnerable at any point. I still have I'm always vulnerable in a lot of things I do. I venture into new places. I travel to new places by myself. I venture into new business opportunities, new careers continuously by myself or on my own. And I don't have a problem doing it on my own, but the fear of failing or the fear of being in a new environment is always there. And the fear of, I don't know, maybe, you know, not succeeding at it or just not really knowing how you're going to interact with people in that environment or what's yet to come is always there, and it always has been. One thing I decided to do newly this year is attempt to do more activities, and come rain or shine, go, and no matter who decides to tag along, whether they're there or not, still go and do it myself, to a point where I've started 2 new classes, one salsa and one bachata.
Hey!
So yeah, just to get out there and do the things that you want to do, and kind of like be damned with the fear aspect. Okay, fear can be there, but let it not overcome, you know, the act of actually doing something or trying something new. I think you're always going to have an aspect of you know, fear when you're in a new situation or a different situation that you're not used to. But if you allow that to be more, if you allow the fear to be more, or the vulnerability feeling to overcome you, then you end up not doing anything, and you end up not even attempting to do something that you could possibly very much enjoy or be very successful at. Another thing sort of I did last year, I became self-employed. So that was really big, because you're vulnerable continuously. Your finances are vulnerable. Like sometimes you don't know when your next bill is coming in. You don't know when your next invoice is coming in. Like it's a level of vulnerability. But I don't think I hands down, I must say, being self-employed is probably the best thing I have ever done. And yet it came with so much fear. Do you understand? So I think don't be scared to be vulnerable, because if you're scared to be vulnerable, that's fear on top of fear. Do you know what I mean? You're already being vulnerable in a situation is already fearful enough, but to be scared scared, it's just null and void. You're not going to get anywhere.
It's natural though. I do think it's natural to be scared. I mean, one of my friends had been strongly recommending me this book for ages called Daring Greatly, by Brené Brown, I think her name is. My friend who recommended me this is Ashley, of course, from Thoughts on the Mic podcast. But she, in that book, Brené talks about how one of the big problems of people not wanting to be vulnerable is the fact that they are so afraid. The biggest thing that's blocking them from being vulnerable is the idea of feeling ashamed or feeling shame. And I think it's a really powerful thing, actually, because feeling shame is what stops us from doing so many things in our lives. And I think it's just not because we're scared. I think a lot of the time it's because we don't want the idea of we don't want to be embarrassed.
Yeah.
We don't want to look stupid. I think that's, and I even like what you guys are talking about when it comes to relationships, that you don't want someone to hold something against you. Like, it's crazy that in a relationship where that's meant to be loving, in a romantic context, where you're meant to be sharing all kinds of things together, you're afraid of this person holding something against you. Why would that be a forefront? Why would that be an idea in your head when that person's meant to be there for you in a romantic context? It's insane to me. But I think that's what the big thing is there. It's like feeling ashamed, feeling that you can basically be left wide open. It's like that's what we're really afraid of.
Yeah, true that. So I said to myself this summer, I am going to learn how to rollerblade.
Oh.
I'm going to learn how to rollerblade. I've been telling everyone around me about it just so I'm held accountable. That's something I've started doing.
That's a good thing. Like,
because
that's a good tactic. Mention it to people around you, especially people that are around you often, and it does hold you to a level of accountability.
Because then it's like when they come and ask you about it, and you're just like, what had happened was,
it's
exactly.
Not good.
So, do you know what I mean? And then another thing that I've said I was going to do was, sorry, I wrote it down in my resolutions. Learn how to express more emotion other than irritation, sarcasm, and anger.
Sorry, I know why. You know why I'm laughing, because those
are my emotions.
Those are your emotions.
In a nutshell.
There's nothing wrong with those emotions,
no.
but
I don't think there is anything wrong with
allow
those
yourself
emotions,
to express the rest of them.
Thank you.
That's it. Yeah,
Thank
exactly.
you. And that's something I am definitely working on, and not to just be so horrible to people. I don't mean not come with the same shade that I usually come with when I can smell some BS, but I don't have to be so cutthroat with it. There is a polite way to politely. There is a way to politely tell somebody no.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I haven't quite figured that out yet because I don't have a forum. But, yeah.
But there is.
Rome
wasn't built in a day, and neither is Faham. So.
You know what? You're right though, because I feel like even with I think for me, one thing that I'm trying to sort of learn to not do is to constantly feel the need to project this person who is independent and strong all the time, because that's not the truth. I'm a human. I have faults. There are times when I cry. There's times when I'm upset. There's times when I don't feel so confident in myself. But I think I tend to project that I'm always okay. Which isn't a bad thing, because most of the time I probably am okay, to be fair. But I think sometimes it makes people feel unable to be honest with you. And in that, and because you sort of recognize that in other people, you also kind of reciprocate that in return and are never vulnerable and honest with them, and it kind of becomes this self-perpetuating cycle in that no one's being honest with each other because everyone thinks that everyone is doing great, and that's not the truth. So I'm trying to be maybe less, I don't know, just try and be more open about who I am as a person, and be more open about the fact about my flaws, and try and be less afraid of saying that actually sometimes I'm scared, and I'm not always so confident and sure in things. Though I'm trying to figure out a balance with that, because not every place that you say that is going to be a safe space for you to say those things.
Hence a support network.
Yeah, but like even sometimes if you're meeting people for the first time, or even when it comes to job interviews, like, and someone asks you what would you say your weaknesses are, am I now going to be like, oh, this isn't my support network, so really and truly I'm going to lie to you right now? I think there's nothing wrong with admitting that you have weak points, but you gotta be smart in when you're saying these things. Like you can't always be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be there are people who overshare. I've just met you. I don't need to know that your relationship's a mess. Your husband don't like you. I don't need to know that shit. I don't know you. Like, that's not the time to be vulnerable, sis. That's the time to get help. You need therapy. But I feel like there are times where it's like, you know what, if I'm having a hard day and someone keeps asking you to do shit, be like, actually, hold on. I'm having a difficult day today. I can't handle your stuff on top of mine. Can we leave this to another day? Just things like that.
That question that you said about the job interviews, when they ask you, oh, like, describe a weakness that you have, they're actually waiting for you to then tell them what you're then doing to proactively overcome that. It's not just admit that is your weakness and okay, I'm not organized, but it is what it is. No, what are you doing to stop, like, to try and organize yourself?
Yeah.
Did you buy a diary? Did you buy a planner? That kind of thing.
Yeah, I think, guys, we portray that kind of behavior within our podcasts. So we identify problems, and then we try to offer solutions or say things as to what we're doing, at least personally what we're doing to overcome that. With you know, another thing just coming with that is that when you're experiencing something, don't think you're the only person in the world that is experiencing it. Like there are loads of people who have been through it before, are going through it now, or are still yet to go through it. You're not the first person in the world to have that problem. So sharing it and being vulnerable, you'll be surprised the feedback you get back. Someone may have literally just come out of that situation, maybe going into that situation, and even sometimes being vulnerable and sharing to the relevant people will help that person as well in their life, because then they can think, they're proactively thinking about how they would overcome it. Helping you to overcome it can help them to overcome it as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And also, even though we talk about overcoming things, it doesn't mean that it will never come again and you can never be vulnerable again. It just means overcoming that particular situation. And even in that situation, it can repeat itself, but it's just giving you the tools or thinking about how you can make that vulnerability less of a barrier to what you want to do or what you want to achieve. And sometimes that vulnerability will stay throughout the whole time. But if you can prioritize, or you can think more about overcoming it or stepping higher than the vulnerability in order to achieve what you want to achieve, then you're going more towards success than you are away from it. So I think those are the points that we really want to emphasize, to be honest.
Yeah. What interest, like, just for what because for Hannah, we think about actually, what would you say was, we're not talking about work at the moment, but just in your personal life, what would you say is a big weakness for you? And for Hannah, just to say, because you've already mentioned you're working on your emotions and stuff, you can't say that one.
Oh, I wasn't going to. Saying I'm going to do something and not doing it.
Procrastination
is my number one enemy, and that is why I have invested heavily on my wall. You guys obviously can't see it, but on my wall I've got I did my reflection for last year, and it was asking me questions about things that I would like to change about myself in the upcoming year. And I realized I have been saying forever, I've got all these like ideas in my head of things that I want to do. I've shared some of them, but then again, like Chardz said, it's that worrying about it not being successful, or worrying about it failing, or just worrying. My personal worry is I'll start it and then have no interest to continue it afterwards. That is a big thing that I do. I might start something and I don't finish it, and I'm worried that I don't want to start something that I don't want to finish. So I am, part of what I've been doing this year is having like a planner on hand, and I've got like a planner on the wall, and I've got one that I carry around with me in my bag, and it's basically just a case of scheduling scheduling the times that I'm going to do something. So I might set aside a Sunday afternoon, and I'll, put in an hour or two to that thing. And the idea is not to overexhaust myself with the activity. It's literally just do it for an hour and leave it and go on to the next thing. And I think by doing that, I'm less likely to feel exhausted by the idea of it and more likely to continue doing it. And then in terms of like starting my own side hustles, because that's something that us millennials are all so hell-bent on doing. Everyone's trying to escape that 9 to 5. I have ideas again, and it's just a case of putting those ideas and breaking them down into short-term goals and making them more attainable. So I think rather than just looking at the big picture, it's very important that I take the time to set aside shorter-term goals that will help me reach that overall goal. And those are what I've been doing to try and overcome my procrastination.
Okay. Jules?
Oh, damn. Okay. I think one of the things, I guess my biggest weakness, I think for me, is that I don't know how to say no, which is actually quite a hard one for me.
Oh, I'll teach you. I love saying no. No.
No, I feel like for me it's really hard for me to say no, or like to be like I can't, or I'm always kind of like just like, yeah, it's okay, or yeah, sure, it's fine, or and I need to just have the flipping chest to be like, actually this isn't a good idea for me, or no, I can't, or no, this isn't within my budget this month, or no, that like I just need to learn to, even to justify it sometimes, just to say no. Like I struggle because I feel like in my mind I need to justify why I'm saying no, and if I can't immediately justify it, then I can't say no, and that's rubbish, because if I feel in my chest it's a no, it's a no, that's it. So I'm trying this year to sort of begin to work through that process, but I kind of don't know how in some ways. But it's not even hard to say how. I can say no now. How am I not saying no? Just in general. But I don't know. It's something I'm working on anyway.
I completely understand, because that is a mixture of my problem. Like, I take on too much, and my problem is I take on too much, and I don't know how to say no. So I don't take on too much. Does that make sense? Like, even if I already have a plan, it's like, okay, I'm gonna do something this weekend. I already have a plan in my head, and then someone's like, oh, can you do this for me? Or do you want to do this? And I'm kind of like, yeah. And then I'm like trying to fix the times together and be like, okay, 2 hours here and 4 hours here and da da da. And I really put this amount of pressure on myself to do all of it all the time, and that I think that has been how I've been anyway in terms of my life. I always do a lot at one time, and I don't know why. I just need to like, I know that I want to get somewhere, but sometimes I just need to like cool down and just be like, just do the one thing today instead of 5. Just the one. How about that? And then you can do the other one tomorrow. It may take a bit longer, but it may take a bit longer to, whether it's to see everybody or to do everything that you want to do or achieve everything that you want to achieve, but it comes with less stress, and I really need to like de-stress myself. So my biggest weakness is piling so much onto myself at once, and not saying no to things. Sometimes I need to just let opportunities go and be like, okay, that one's no, and I can just do this one.
It burns you though, doesn't it?
It really does. And I know what you mean, Jules, because it's like, if I can't justify it, and the thing is that for me, even though I have like 10 things in my diary already, that's not justification enough to be like, no, I can't do the 11th. For me, it's like, anything's possible. I should be able to do it. Yeah, that's fine. As opposed to actually let me give myself a bit more breathing space. And I agree. I need to work on that too.
I think that kind of stems from the whole never let them see you sweat type of thing. To be fair.
I think it's from the fact that I think especially when I was younger, I was a massive people pleaser. And sometimes I still haven't gotten it. There are some times where I realise I haven't completely gotten over that, and it's so sad because like you don't have the time. That even when it comes to like what I'm going to be practicing one day, I can't be a doctor and be saying yes to everything my patients want, because sometimes the answer is a no. Like I cannot help you. Not that I can't help you, but what you're looking for is not what you need. So but to be fair, I've realised I just finished GP placement, and I had to say no to a few patients, and it was hard to say, but it had to be said. And it mentally like took a lot out of me to gear myself up to say no. But sometimes actually when you tell somebody no, and even though they kind of set out with this goal, they're going to get something from you, and you say no, sometimes people are actually okay with it. Sometimes people are just asking just to see if you say yes. And when you say no, it's like, okay. Like, what's the actual issue?
But it took so much courage for you to say no in the first place. What I don't find it, no offense to anybody that's out there, but I don't find it difficult to say no to people that I am not close with. I find it difficult to say no to people who are close to me.
Yes.
So it's like when if you're asking me for money or a hand, help in something, I really struggle to say no. I always want to be able to I want to be able to do it. I always want to be able to, and it's like I want to do it because I care or I love you, but it's like I'm breaking at this point already, and I literally cannot cope with yet another thing in my basket. And I really struggle with people that are close to me.
It's hard.
I am quite content telling patients no. Because it's for your benefit.
Not gonna lie. There's a part of me that enjoys it.
It's for me, the way I see it is, when I'm saying no, it's for your benefit, and
it is for your benefit.
We're coming from a professional point of view.
I'm not trying to
so I'm just like, yeah, exactly. I'm not trying to be your friend. I'm trying to help you do something that is good for you. But when it's friends and you're just kind of like, okay, you're a bit more lenient. Do you know what I mean? And people that are close to you are just like, okay, I know what's good for you, or I know what I can do for you, but then I'm going to break my back to do even more because of our friendship.
Oh, yeah.
It's a hard one because I feel like in GP though, like saying no to certain things has been relatively like it took a while in the beginning, but I always, if I need to say no, I would say no, and eventually it became second nature to be like, actually, this isn't what you need, you can try this instead, and it was fine. And I'm hoping that same thing can sort of extend to other sorts of areas of my life, because honestly, like I remember in that moment, like some of those times I'd be like, oh, I know she wants this, I ain't gonna give it to them. And sometimes the kindest thing you can say to somebody is no, and I'm trying to like hopefully like learn that even with friendships and people who are close to me, that they can begin to understand that I'm not saying no to be unkind to them. I'm just trying to be kind to myself, and hopefully it doesn't become a major issue or anything like that. But if your friends love you and that, then that's not an issue. They'll just be like, oh, I get it, and they'll be fine. Keep it moving. So
yeah.
But yeah. Oh, I guess what's it called? We're calling on time. Sorry, guys. So what's it called? Have we already discussed our take-home messages already? Pretty much.
I kind of feel like we have, to be fair.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
Any last-minute thoughts, girls?
On being vulnerable?
Yeah.
I think just of what we said before, just to reiterate, vulnerability will consistently be there throughout most things that you do. Just try to not be fearful of being vulnerable, and find little ways to overcome them. It doesn't mean that it's going to disappear forever. It just means that you'll more likely succeed than you will fail if you can find ways to overcome the barrier of vulnerability. When vulnerability is a barrier, when you can overcome, if you find ways to overcome that, then that's more helpful. But being vulnerable sometimes is a very key part of relationships, whether it's work relationships or love relationships, whatever. It is a key part of that, for open and honesty, and for people to actually know who you are and how you receive things, how you feel, and to be able to relate with you properly. If you're not completely vulnerable, they're only looking at the outside of you, they can't really see what's inside. If that makes sense.
It does make sense.
To be honest, I pretty much agree though. I'll go as far as to say is that you can't have any important relationships in your life without vulnerability. If you can't be honest, or you are too afraid to be honest when you're trying to get to know someone in any sort of capacity, then you aren't going to be able to build on that relationship or make it strong at all. So it's important that, yes, it is hard, and yes, you're probably going to be scared, but it's important that you kind of learn to sort of bite the bullet, and realize that you can't even begin to see how great things could be if you don't allow yourself to sort of give a little bit in order to receive something much better.
I hear that one. Yeah, guys, I think my last thoughts, not take-home message, but my last thoughts are just live fearlessly. I don't mean recklessly, fearlessly, difference. Live fearlessly and know that every opportunity that's been presented to you, or every opportunity that you choose to create out of the situation, is there for the taking, and the only person that's going to hold you back from doing that is yourself. And with every situation, there is a risk and there is a benefit. But I would like to think that the benefit would outweigh the risk. So even if you do fail, you've taken away something from that situation regardless. You won. So don't be thinking that just because you failed, that's all there is to take away from the situation. There is a lesson, and lessons are few and far between. So when you learn something, you better remember it. So yeah, that's my last thought, I would say. Okay. But yeah, guys, thank you for tuning in. Make sure to follow us on our social media platforms, our Insta, our Twitter, our Facebook, our individual Instagrams. We are available on Spotify, Anchor, iTunes, YouTube, wherever you can think of to listen, we are there. So make sure to give this one a listen, make sure to share and subscribe, and also don't forget, share down below with us as well any times or situations where you yourself have found yourself being vulnerable and what you have done about it. What have you taken away from it? But yeah, guys, we love you. Have an enjoyable week, and we will catch you later.
Bye, guys. Bye.